So I got a question from somebody called Erin in the community tab, and Erin was saying that they've been in recovery, I think, for 6 months or so since their most recent relapse, and feeling pretty comfortable. And I think the question was, should you always be uncomfortable in recovery, or is it okay to get to a point where you sort of feel comfortable in the things that you've changed and the things that you've challenged? Well, there's no right answer to that question, because obviously when you're fully recovered, then you'll be comfortable with everything. But here's this thing that happens all too often. So, you've got say if you're not in recovery and you've got your normal routine of whatever it is, exercise, binging, purging, safe foods, which a lot of us are like Groundhog Day the whole time. When you decide to change that, that's really difficult. And you have to work really hard. Say, for example, if I am making this change where I'm going to introduce things like peanut butter and croissants and different things at breakfast time, that initial change, very difficult. But then what happens with a lot of us is that after a couple of days of, we make that change then becomes easy. And what you'll find is that the peanut butter and the croissants become almost like the new safe foods. And they become, and whatever it is, maybe you changed your run to something like a walk, and that feels like recovery. And first of all, that feels really scary, and then that feels easy, but then you're attached to doing that walk. So it's like you develop a new eating disorder routine that might look a little less extreme. It might have more food in it, and it might have less exercise in it than your old eating disorder routine. But then that's the new thing, and you're stuck in that routine for years. And so that, by the way, is not recovery. That is just your eating disorder just looking slightly different with a couple of croissants in it and less running. It's still an eating disorder. You just changed what it looked like, and your brain got used to that change. Your brain became safe with that change, and then that became the new rule, so to speak. And I feel like a lot of people find that happens, and it's very important to recognize that, because as soon as you start to get in that feeling of like, this is my croissant I have every morning and I don't want to move from this and this feels safe, that's when you have to change it. You've got to up it. You've got to up it and you've got to change more, because that is not the same as freedom. That is just a different set of rules, and it's just a different set of safe foods. And full recovery is total freedom, where it isn't sort of a rule and it's not a routine. You can just wake up in the morning and be like, what do I want to eat? And no food is barred. And so that, I think, can be it's just problematic for a lot of people. I'll speak to some people and they'll say, oh, well, I'm not nearly as bad as I used to be, and I eat stuff like pizza now, and I eat chocolate now, this, that, and the other. And then I'm like, yeah, but what are all the rules that you have to satisfy during the day if you're going to eat pizza in the evening or chocolate? And they're like, well, yeah, I have to do X, Y, Z. And it's just like, well, what's the difference? What's the difference? The only difference is that you're eating pizza as opposed to whatever your previous safe food was. And you still have to jump through all these hoops all day in order to allow yourself to eat that. That's not freedom. Having rules is not freedom. Having rules around exercise, having rules around food, having rules that say I'm allowed to eat pizza on a Friday night but not on a Tuesday night, that is not freedom, and that is not recovery. And so you have to be really careful about letting yourself get stuck in that trap. And it is a trap because people use that sort of thought of, well, I eat pizza now, and people with eating disorders won't eat foods like pizza, to sort of justify staying in that trap and not actually fighting and moving forward anymore. And it is dangerous, because then you can kid yourself that you're sort of recovered when you're not. And then you can stay there for years and waste all of this time, and ultimately you're not going to be happy because you're still just as trapped as you were before you could eat pizza. And a lot of time people say, if they're fighting against somebody who's telling them, no, you need to be doing recovery, you're not fully recovered yet, they'll also use those things like, well, I can do this and I can eat that and X, Y, and Z to justify why they don't need to push harder. And again, that's when you can see the fear coming up, the fear of change coming up, and all of those things. And I just think, ultimately, if somebody is saying to you, you're not fully recovered, it probably means that you're not fully recovered. So I don't know if I answered the question now, and I actually can't remember what the question was, but maybe that helps somebody.